My name is Harvey Oswald. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and quickly moved to Dallas, Texas, where I went to school until the age of 12. At 12, I moved to New York City with my mother. There, we lived with my half-brother, and I got into a fight that got us kicked out. Over the next 5 years, I got into a lot of fights across 22 different schools. In New York City, I was truant, and I had to go to a psychiatrist who diagnosed me as emotionally disturbed. After 22 schools total, I dropped out in the 10th grade and joined the Marines. In the Marines, I learned a lot of things from basic training in tech school, like shooting, which I was a pretty good shooter, and I had a sharp shooter badge. I learned how to be a radio technician and was in the Marines until deciding to learn Russian and get my passport, planning to defect to the Soviet Union and become a Soviet Union citizen. After getting discharged from the Marines, I went through Europe to Russia, to Moscow, and tried to gain Soviet citizenship on a visa. After not getting my citizenship, I pleaded with them, revoked my US citizenship, and eventually got sent to Minsk, Belarus, where I worked as a radio engineer. Here, I met my wife, Marina, and we had a baby, June. Over the next year, I realized that communism was much different than I believed it to be, and so we wanted to go back to the United States. It took us a year and a half before making it back to the US, where I had stopped following communism and started believing more of Karl Marx ideologies and Marxism philosophies. From here, I was supporting the Castro movement in Cuba and wanting to put a stop to the anti-Castro movement in Florida. I did a lot of things such as spying and infiltrating anti-Castro movements and heavily supporting pro-Castro beliefs. I wanted to go through Mexico to get to Cuba and be a guerrilla war member down there. After being unsuccessful, I ended up back in Dallas, where my wife stayed with some friends nearby while I worked. I got a job at the Texas School Book Depository. Here I worked as a warehouse clerk, organizing supplies and filling orders. I also bought a cheap Italian rifle, which I trained frequently with. One day, on November 22nd, 1963, President Kennedy was going to have a motorcade through Dallas, go right below the depository. I decided to go to the 6th floor of the depository early that day and get set up for a shot at the motorcade. As President Kennedy came through, I got a clear shot and took 3 shots with my rifle at the president. After fleeing the scene, I was arrested on different charges later on involving the murder of a police officer. During my transport to a jail for this charge, I was shot by Jack Ruby, who was a local strip bar owner in Dallas with many connections to the police department and mobsters.